Hello, and thank you. I heard this week that Captain Sully Sullenberger returned to flying again. And ever since the miracle on the Hudson.
The creation on the Hudson?
Yeah, I've been wondering just how many people had to be in alignment for that to happen? Was it just him? And it happened so fast
what
that
part
no
are you
one
talking
else...
about? Are you talking about the creation where he rendezvoused perfectly with a flock of geese and performed the perfect thing that he always planned to do if that would happen?
All of it, yes.
Many say, oh, were we ever lucky to be on an airplane with a man who was trained to do that? Mm-hmm. And we would say,
yeah, was it a
you
plane?
really call that luck, that you rendezvoused with someone that had put that in his vortex? Or would you rather rendezvous with a pilot who had never had a thought about an emergency landing and therefore was never in the process of attracting one?
Yeah, was his expectation enough to do it?
Little mind twisting, isn't it? Well, what do you think? In other words, do you think that stuff just happens, and when it happens, if you're really good, then you can get yourself out of it? Or do you think you create your own reality? Which is it? You can't have it both ways. In other words, and yet you flip back and forth. This audience just flipped back and forth. In other words, Jerry and Esther were laughing about this because they were talking about having a plan B. And when you have a plan B, does that mean you don't really expect plan A to work? And if you don't really expect plan A to work, then are you resistant to plan A and therefore you need plan B? And if you're resistant to plan A, you're probably a little resistant to plan B, so now you've got plan C. And pretty soon you're not in a place of alignment with what you really want at all, you see. That's the point that we're making. What point were you wanting to make?
Well, I just was wondering, what did it take to arrange that? Was it just his expectation of being in the vortex, or was it a plane of people coming back from one of these seminars that was enough to make that kind of a miracle happen?
Well, here's the thing. Let us just ask you, because we really want to get to the heart of this. Was the miracle having a safe landing after a disaster in the sky, or was the miracle the disaster in the sky? In other words, what part of it do you want to call deliberate creating? His ability to bring that big airplane down safely after something that you don't want to call creation happened? Or do you want to call it all creation? In other words, flocks of birds are flying. They're intuitive. Do you understand that nothing happens except for the vibrational alignment and point of attraction? Because law of attraction says when you focus upon something and activate it in your vibration, it becomes a part of your point of attraction. Now, we acknowledge that this airline pilot who wants to deliver people safely, and we understand all the safety regulations and all of the practicing, but this man was more intensely involved in this sort of rescue than any pilot that you'll ever meet. He was teaching it. It was really, 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 really active in his vibration. And many would say, well, wasn't it fortunate that the man who had that most activated in his vibration was the man who had the experience so that he could get them out of it safely? And we say, but you forget, he was the man who had it most activated in his vibration. In other words, the geese, or whoever they were cooperative components to the most active vibration that he had going on. When Esther first began receiving us, she had this sort of distorted view of what interacting with infinite intelligence would be about. And in the very early days, she actually thought that it was about life just going bad for most people, but some of us are lucky enough that we get to tap in to infinite intelligence to help us out of trouble. So she actually thought that we would help her to rescue people from close calls. It took her quite a while before she began to realize that we were in a vibration not where the close calls are. We're not training you to look for trouble and solve it. We're training you to be a vibrational match to the well-being that you are seeking. And there is a big vibrational difference in that, you see. Mm-hmm. So we think it is nice that those people were fortunate enough to be on an airplane with a man who knew what he was doing. We also think it is interesting that they were a vibrational match to someone who had that point of attraction going on. Mm-hmm. So now you say, well, now I don't know what to do. Do I want a pilot that's trained for trouble? And we say, you really don't. You really don't. You want a pilot who never expects any trouble, but it's not easy to be in this world and not expect some sort of trouble. And so it's a constant refining of what you are wanting. It's a constant refocusing. This is such an interesting thing where your world, for the most part, takes disasters and problems and builds monuments to them, and generation after generation points you toward the troubles that you've lived, and that is predominantly the reason that the majority of people are resistant to the well-being. It's really a funny thing. The people who are living are putting all kinds of wonderful things in this vortex of creation, and new ones, the new babies that are being born from this vibration of well-being, but as soon as they get here, they're trained by those that are sure that there are problems to be had, you see. So we're just trying to help you to find some balance. So if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would continue to say things always work out for me. And plenty of the people on that airplane said, well, it really did work out well for me because there was someone who really knew what he was doing. And we say there is something off in the vibration of anyone who has to land in the Hudson. But you like the drama of it, don't you? In other words, if you all didn't like the drama of it, you would focus more upon what you want. There would be many more people talking about what they want and far fewer people talking about what they don't want, you see. And in the long run, it all works out anyway. Nothing is going terribly wrong. We're just saying, you get to choose. Every one of you get to choose how resistant you are to your well-being and how much drama you want in the closing of the gap. In other words, someone who wants and allows and wants and allows and wants and allows and wants and allows has a very nicely unfolding, deliberate life. Someone who wants and doesn't allow, so wants and doesn't allow, and wants and doesn't allow, and then allows, has a more exciting ride, you see. We have enjoyed this interaction immensely. It's interesting because now we've spent some time in the vortex, and you've witnessed several people in perfect alignment with that which is their vortex. Do you feel a diffusion of anything that has been troubling in your experience? Does it feel to you as if the problems that are responsible for the creation of this vortex have now served their purpose, and now you're ready to give your undivided attention to what's in the vortex? Do you think that we could just stay in the vibrational patterning that you have all achieved? Do you think that we could stay here and sustain life experience just by talking about life from inside the vortex? Then you'd be wrong. It's a trick question. What we want you to reach for is, can you feel a sense of poignancy that comes from both sides of the equation? In other words, can't you feel that after a while, this vortex, good as it is, and as much as you feel it, needs a little beefing up? And aren't you sort of willing to maybe leave the vortex long enough to find another question to which you seek an answer? To find another problem to which you seek a solution, because it is in that movement into the vortex that your real life becomes. In other words, some might say, oh, Abraham's going to open up a discussion where people can talk about being in the vortex, and the line's going to be out the door and around the block. It will never come to an end. But it did. Did you see it peter out? In other words, this is the power of what contrast does. Contrast keeps putting the stuff back into your vortex, and it is our promise to you, friends, you get your greatest lift from life moving into the vortex, not getting in and staying there. So what you want to do is stay in there long enough to understand the vibration of it. Stay in there long enough to feel the power and the clarity of it. And then from your place of knowing how easy it is to get in there anytime you want, to dive headlong into the contrasts that surround you for the purpose of ferreting out the expansion that you were born to discover. Are you getting what we're talking about? Because if it is not for the contrast that gives birth to the expansion, there could not be the movement into it, and it is the movement into it that really is the sweetness of life that so many of you are wanting to find. It all fits together so magnificently. You knew when you made the decision to come forth into this physical body that the diversity that surrounds you would help you to focus. And this has been a magnificent day of deliberately focusing energy. We have been so satisfied in listening to the words that you have been choosing. And what we always do, we listen with specific ear to the words that you speak in conjunction with the vibration that you're offering. And one of the things that we have found to be very exhilarating here today is so many of you speaking the vibration that you really are feeling. In other words, it is so satisfying to find you speaking what you know. And it is also satisfying to find you knowing what you know from inside the vortex. It feels to us that this gathering has reached a place of conclusion. Does it feel that way to you? From inside the vortex, life on planet Earth is at the most secure and stable state that it has ever been, and becoming more so. From inside the vortex, there is not anything on the planet that is broken that needs to be fixed. But there are endless things that could be improved, which makes it a continual, inspiring place for expansion. From inside the vortex, the well-being that is dominant is understood even on a physical level. From inside the vortex, generations that are from your physical experience yet to be lived and still to come are understood completely and known as satisfying experiences that hundreds and thousands of future generations will experience right here in this time-space reality. From inside the vortex, the imbalance that is being experienced in regards to economics and in regards to ecology and in regards to physical physiology, from inside the vortex, the improvement and the expansion that has been asked for is substantial enough to sustain you for more time than you have yet experienced on this planet. In other words, the eternalness that stretches out before you is something that you can count on in a physical sense here in this physical time-space reality. What we are saying to you is the well-being that you've been asking for because of the contrast that you've been living is the very thing that has put the sustaining of life on planet Earth into a place that you can count on. Every time you see something or read something that makes you fearful of your physical well-being, it puts more of the eternalness in your eternity. And the good news is, since each of you make your decision to come back as future generations from inside the vortex, you never bring any of those fears or concerns with you, which means that the balance of your physical planet is always one of enormously focused well-being. In short, we're just saying to you that the things that you find to fuss and worry about are only the things that you use to stir up more stuff to put into your vortex. But they are a figment of your imagination. You have the ability to conjure images that feel good now or conjure images that don't feel good now. And the heaven or hell that you are experiencing right here. And what it is the vibrational relationship between who you really are and that which you are allowing yourself to be here and now. This life for you over the next days, weeks, months, and years will be as good to you as you will allow it to be. If you will practice your conversation as best you can from inside the vortex, those who are around you will stand in awe and amazement at the universal forces' cooperation in helping your world to be the outstanding one that you have conjured. You didn't come forth to be the only one living that magnificent life. And through the clarity of your example, as so many of you said sitting here, you will inspire many others to the same. There could not be more love for you or more appreciation for that which you are. We want to say to you that without exception, you are living the intention that you came forth to live. And we want you to understand and to feel, if only in part, because it's a big thing for you to feel in its entirety. We want you to feel the appreciation that the source within you feels and knows for the important part of the expansion of the universe that you are involved in here. And as someone wisely said to us, it is thrilling to us to know that you are not among those that will have to wait until you croak to know the power of your creation. There is great love here for you. And as always, we remain infinitely, eternally and blissfully in the vortex.